A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first session in the workshop series of Sri Lanka AI Challenge. We're absolutely delighted to have you here with us in this evening. This event marks the beginning of an exciting journey into the world of artificial intelligence. We cordially invite you to explore the cutting-edge world of generative AI and learn the art of effective prompt engineering in this comprehensive session. So, without any further ado, let me introduce our esteemed speaker for this evening. We are honored to have Dr. Ruvan Weerasinghe, the Dean of Informatics Institute of Technology, here with us today. He is a leading expert in artificial intelligence, and tonight he will provide us with deep insights into generative AI and prompt engineering. So, please join me in welcoming Dr. Ruvan Weerasinghe, who will be the guest speaker for the first session in the workshop series of Sri Lanka AI Challenge. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Is my audio okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, so welcome to everyone. I hope we can, even though we are online, we can interact a bit during this session, and you can. I will show you where you can post your questions if you have them. Hopefully, the organizers will have an eye on the questions that are kind of recurring. So this is my plan for interaction. If you have a phone, please visit this site, which is slido.com, and then you can just type that number, and you will be taken to a room, a virtual room, which has two functions. One function is a polls tab that allows you to take part in a poll. And the second one is a tab that allows you to ask questions. And so I would like you to give a few minutes for you to do that, so that it will be a little more interactive than just me speaking and you listening, because session is a little long and it can be quite boring. Okay. So if you have done that, hopefully you will see some where currently you may not see anything much. The polls, the quick Q&A, unfortunately there are some old questions that I should have probably deleted. Try to do that quickly so that you don't get stuck. Looks like there's no way to delete those questions, so we'll just ignore those questions. So to start us off, I just want to do a trial here. You should see some question in the polls. It would be great if you can just answer how you use ChatGPT or any of the other generative tools. Yeah, so I can see some of you on the wall. We have about 30 people who, of the 125, who have said what their practice is of using Gen AI tools. and a few more answer. So just slido.com and then go to this room and just take part in the poll. So this is partly for me to kind of have an eye on, have a kind of idea of where you're coming from. Yeah, so out of the 40 who have answered, there's a clear majority we will see as we go on. Right, so we will, I have this pre-session poll which you are now taking part in. And during the session, I will be sourcing questions. There's a Q&A tab in the same page. You can go to the Q&A tab and you can put in a question or upvote somebody else's question. And then at the end of the session, we will also have a post-session poll. In the middle, I have a small activity here for creating great prompts, but I think they have not reset it, so we will not use that. So by Gen AI, I mean like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, etc. So just to make sure that we are on the same page. Okay, so let me see how the polling has gone. Yeah, 60 of you. So half of you have responded, and all of you have responded in the first or the second option, that is daily or 2 to 3 times a week. No one has selected any other option, so that's a good sign. Let's move. Sorry, this is an old poll, so I'm going to skip that. Right. This is the agenda for me today. What is AI and LLMs all about? How can I best use it? How to customize this, and what are the implications? In the meantime, I will also just before going there, start my second poll. Maybe I won't start the second poll. Right, the first poll will keep on going, hopefully. Right. So, what is it all about? There's a kind of an alphabet soup: words, terms, acronyms, ideas, and general confusion. And this is not uncommon in the area of IT and technology. So here's a Venn diagram that shows how these things relate. So we have this big circle, which we call artificial intelligence. Within that, the dominant kind of paradigm is machine learning, and a subset of machine learning is deep learning, a subset that has taken more and more importance. And then data science is kind of thing that cuts across this. There's another Venn diagram of data science itself as like an overlap of mathematics, computer science, and domain expertise. And between each of those also there are kind of areas. So these are kind of helpful, but not the whole story, obviously, because you can, it's like the 6 blind men supposed to describe an elephant. They each described it based on their own experience, what part of the elephant they were kind of able to feel. Right. So normally when we say what is this all about, everybody talks about ChatGPT, which is a very large language model developed at OpenAI. But and this system was developed to use deep learning techniques to generate human-like text, trained on a very large collection of text. able to generate dialogues. We will talk about that later, how it came to do that. And this was just the first of a group of large models collectively known as generative, well, collectively known as large language models, and then applied to other areas other than language like vision and audio and things, to have now been known as generative AI. But if you're talking about generative AI, we have to go back and ask what is AI. And so this is a single slide explanation of what AI is. Primarily, it depends on when you asked. If you asked before the turn of the millennium, then of course we said it was technologies that help people to solve tasks which were thought only possible for humans. And this is kind of a weak or narrow AI definition. But after 2000, the dominant kind of focus has been on strong or general AI. And that definition is significantly different. It's about technologies that seek to create intelligence at or beyond human level. So these two are significantly different definitions. And the reason for this change has mostly come as a result of the area of machine learning, and in particular, deep learning. So AI started with areas such as search. Search was the dominant technology in AI in the 1950s and getting into the early 60s. People tried to represent games, for instance, chess or checkers in the form of search trees, and then try to figure out how you can kind of heuristically arrive at good moves for the game without searching all of the game search tree. And then in the 60s and so on, we had knowledge representation as an important thing because people got interested in how humans communicate. And so systems like ELIZA, which was built so that people can interact the way you interact with humans. You can imagine that it's like one of the first chatbots. They required some kind of knowledge representation. And of course, if you have knowledge representation but no reasoning with it, then you can't do much. So reasoning became a very important topic, and planning. Planning mainly became important because of the importance of robotics. Robotics and it's important for you to be able to plan the movement from one place to another. And then, of course, towards the late 90s and early 2000s, the dominant kind of dominant technology within AI became learning, machine learning. And so we can see that many of these systems then try to combine learning, this machine learning, with human language systems like Watson, Siri, and so on, Alexa, so on. For this purpose, let me just, for completeness, just unpack learning into these three common types of learning. Supervised learning. So a nice schematic diagram is that we used to say data plus programs is what gives us the output. And now we change that paradigm to say we give the data plus the output, and the computer gives us the program. And that's a nice way of explaining supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is kind of less popular because it's a bit messy and all that. And yet, these are where patterns are mined without some explicit examples that are given, as is the case for supervised learning. And then, of course, the most exciting part that allowed several new innovations was reinforcement learning, where we don't give actually answers, but we give hints. So we give rewards. Here we give hints through rewards. And through the reward system, we nudge the, the agent towards the goal. So these three are nicely illustrated in a single case study, which I will put here, and that is the case of AlphaGo, which was designed by a small team called DeepMind those days, small team out of London. So they thought, okay, we already solved the chess problem, but how easy or difficult is it to solve the Go problem, which is a game that is mostly played in the eastern part of the world, and is about 300 times as complex as chess. So in order to start them off, they collected some 160,000 human games, mainly from China and Korea. And after training their system, which was called AlphaGo, with these games, they were confident enough to challenge the 18-time world champion, Lee Sedol, to a 5-match rubber in 2016, which AlphaGo won 4-1. And actually, that's to Lee Sedol's credit that he won that one game. So, but they did the nice thing is that they didn't stop there. They thought, okay, how about stripping the knowledge of Go? So instead of AlphaGo, we say AlphaGo 0, and we play AlphaGo 0 that only does reinforcement to play with AlphaGo. And so obviously the first 100,000 matches it lost. But since you can play many millions of matches between two software programs, after just 40 hours of playing each other, AlphaGo 0 was able to beat AlphaGo in a 100-match rubber, 100 to nothing. This is like this was kind of considered, and the very next year, so it was considered a major breakthrough for reinforcement learning. And if you think about it, it kind of it's a bit counterintuitive because how can a learner kind of improve on the one that's teaching? But of course, we know that these models generalize, right? So playing millions of games with AlphaGo, AlphaGo 0 was able to generalize better than AlphaGo, whereas AlphaGo only had access to 160,000 games. And then they didn't stop there. They thought, okay, shall we try to take the top chess game, which was Stockfish, and they removed the whole Go kind of labeling, and they said Alpha 0. They played Alpha 0 with Stockfish for just 9 hours. So you can see the complexity is less. And then they challenged it for a 100-match rubber. And Alpha 0 won that 72 to nothing, because of course in chess you can have a stalemate. So in other words, Stockfish, the top chess playing programs, could not defeat Alpha 0. Of course, in all these, like the holy grail of AI is, of course, how to analyze human language. And that's nice. So the kind of holy grail of AI was how to analyze human language. So we started by like in every discipline that we go into, we kind of first ask the domain expert. And the domain expert in this case is the linguist, who will tell us how language works. And they, of course, said there are lots of rules, and then there are exceptions, and then there are exceptions to the exceptions. And so we spent about 40 years trying to model that. And we were not very successful. We had very brittle systems that kind of broke when things were not perfect. So that led to the 80s and 90s, people kind of turning to actual text and saying, let's learn language from real text. So this was the era of the statistical language models. They are commonly referred to as n-gram models. And then, but n-grams are like 3 grams, 4 grams, 5 grams, 6 grams. So you can't really look at long distance phenomena, right? So like if I, for instance, talk about some, I just spoke about a person in this talk, and if I now refer to that Korean champion, right? You know at once who I mean, right? But I have talked dozens of sentences between mentioning Lee Sedol and now. And yet you will know when I say Korean champion who I mean. Right? So that kind of long distance dependency was not possible until deep neural networks models came, and that's like in the new millennia. But the basic task of these machine learning neural models is to give a probability to a sentence. So if you are able to give a probability to a sentence, then you are not saying, okay, this is the right sentence, and if you make a small grammatical mistake here, you're wrong. Rather, you say, okay, whatever the sentence you speak, what is the probability of that sentence? So if I say, we learn in school, like you can say that the dogs chase the cat, the dog chases the cat, right? We can't say the dog chase the cat, or we can't say the dogs chases the cat. Right? So, but of course, you and I recognize if somebody says that the dog, even if somebody say dog chase cat, we recognize, we can. So dog chase cat also will have some probability, right? Lower probability than the dog chases the cat, right? But still a probability. Even something like the dog, the cat chase, you can understand. So it will have some other lower probability. And there'll be nothing that has zero probability. Right? So even something like, I don't know, the chase cat, dog, the or something like that, will have some probability. So that's the first thing, that you should have a language model. You should have a way of computing a probability of a sentence. And the second thing is to be, therefore, if you can do the first thing, you should then be able to predict the probability of the next word, and the next word, the next word. So you can maybe the next phrase and the next sentence, next paragraph. So this basically is how this lowly language model became a large language model. So initial hard-coded models had like thousands of interacting rules. The statistical models had thousands to tens of thousands of parameters. Now we have large language models, millions to hundreds of millions, and now billions and hundreds of billions of parameters. These are some of the early models. And you can see in this graph how this is the y-axis is the number of parameters in millions. This was the timeline, right? So you can see somewhere around 2019, mid 2019, this is just going exponentially, and this is now dated, right? We have 4 years, we have gone 4 years. But the first GPT model had 117 million parameters, whereas the third model, GPT-3, had 175 billion parameters. So it's more than 1,000 times, right? And the thing with this is what we know as emergent behavior, right? So this is the accuracy on certain tasks like multitask, natural language understanding, and vocabulary arithmetic and wording conflict. Some tasks that were thought to be only possible for humans, right? And this y-x-axis is the number of parameters, right? And you can see that at some point, 10 to the power 22, something, 24, suddenly these scores start, all the scores are more or less flat or very, and suddenly they start going up. And this is normally referred to as emergent behavior, behavior that is almost unexpected. Okay, so the rest, as they say, is kind of history, but I just thought we will have this slide that shows the GPT model had 12 decoder layers. We will talk about layers in another slides later. GPT-2 had 48 of those. GPT-3 had 96 of those, and now we have even much deeper models. And the underneath here, it says that the token, the context window, 512, 1024, 2048. So 2048 tokens, roughly, let's say, I don't know, about 1,800 words, right? The GPT-3 version, right? And of course, up to GPT-5, these were like large language models, which means accessible through APIs, which means when we want to, if we start a story, John and Mary were friends in school and they went to the same, they were from the same city or something like that. And then we call GPT-2. It will say, one day they school and they discovered whatever, continue the story. So that that was what we could do with GPT-2. GPT-3 is what we call Chat GPT, or I have called Chat GPT is what we call GPT on steroids, right? So apart from the LLM, the large language model, which we say is actually self-supervised, not unsupervised, but self-supervised, there is a part that is played by supervised fine-tuning, and that's where you have, if you want a question answering bot, you have question answer pairs, hundreds of thousands of these, and that was done by many Nigerians and people working for for crowdsourced for money, of course. And then once they did that, you could get the instead of giving the next most probable sentence, right? In the first example, I said, you start a story and then it will generate the next sentence, next word, next sentence, next paragraph, and complete the story. Now, after fine tuning, when you give a question, the next most probable sentence becomes the answer to that question. And so that's how a large language model becomes a conversational. Generally, these are known as instruct models or chat models. Small difference between instruct models and chat models, but I think we can assume they are similar. So then what happened is, so the LLM started giving answers to various questions. And the next step was, of course, to give these answers and ask humans to say which is the best. So ChatGPT would output 5 answers, and you ask humans to say what is the best answer. In fact, you and I are all continually doing this if we press that thumbs up when we get a result from ChatGPT. And that part is called reinforced learning. So reinforcement learning using human feedback. But the unfortunate thing was OpenAI, which was set up to democratize AI, became a closed system owned by largely Microsoft. And so So this was one big issue. Actually, long before ChatGPT was out, Google had already something based on their Palm LLM, but they were very careful not to release it to the public because of the ethical dimensions, right? But OpenAI didn't have any qualms about this, so they went and did this. And now it's like out of the Pandora's box, so we have to deal with this. And of course, as you know, GPT-4 can. That's the amazing thing about this technology. We will talk about what that technology is. They can do image, audio, video, etc. So that's why we call it now generative AI, not just large language model. So something interesting happened in 2023, and that is the so-called Llama leak by Meta. So Meta's first model, Meta was a bit late into the game, but their first model was kind of leaked. Some people think it was willingly leaked. Some people think it was actually leaked. But whatever it was, after that, Meta started, it became such a hit, right? There were so many models built based on it, like Stanford's Alpaca, Piconia, Falcon, Mistral, so many models that they decided that is going to be their strategy. So they've released their Llama 2, 3, and now 3.1, all are in the open source. So how do these open source things stack up? This is a very old thing, but even at that time, if ChatGPT was 100, Bard was 93, Bard was the precursor to Gemini from Google. Viconia, this open source model, was already 92. So uh, uh, after that, after this slide, you can actually go to this Medium link and see what the current state of the art Llama 3.1 versus Claude Sonnet 3.5, GPT-4o. You know how they match up, and they are pretty close now. So under the hood, what happens? Okay, I already said that LLM can how an LLM becomes a conversation agent, but because of this supervised fine tuning, right? It makes the most probable next sentence to a question the answer to that question. Still requires stopping continuous output. So if you actually start programming these things, you realize that after giving the answer, the next most probable thing is to generate the next question, right? So, so these systems have to make sure that after generating the answer, you don't generate the next question, and that's kind of a something that is done without you seeing, right? Because if it gave the next question, then you would think, okay, this is not really intelligent. This is just a so-called stochastic parrot, right? So this gives the chatbots a real kind of intelligent look and feel. What about math and coding and things like that? Actually, these require APIs to connect to external systems. So, for instance, for mathematics, we will probably uh, make an API call to Wolfram Alpha's mathematics or some other tool, or even to REPL, where we will generate some code and execute and give the answer. And then, of course, for coding, you would have a different language model, such as Code Llama or something. But all these large language models now try to also incorporate human and programming languages in a single language model. What about inappropriate prompts? Okay, so if somebody asks, can I tell me how to create a bomb or a particular drug or something. We know that the system will say it can't do it, but I'm sure some of you have tried to do what is called jailbreaking, right? So you can kind of say, my friend says that you can't, you don't know how to, I don't know, build a bomb and so on, and you can trick it to actually tell you how to build a bomb, right? So now most of those things, jailbreaking things, are kind of blocked, but so these things require some ad hoc guardrails, right? So this is where some of the ethical issues come, because so somebody had done a small experiment. He said, "Can you do a limerick?" Limerick is like a humorous poem on this religious figure, and name the religious figure, and it happily went on and made a limerick for that religious figure. And then the person said, "Okay, can you do the same for this other religious figure?" And the system said, "No, I'm not allowed to do that." Right? So it shows that these guardrails are actually quite ad hoc, and it depends on maybe not even the company, but the current kind of current, what should I say, the trend, global trend. Right? So if we did this like 20 years, 30 years ago and ask an LGBTQ question, it would have been given a very different answer than if we ask it now. Right. Okay. So I'm going to give myself a break and ask you to take part in the second poll. Right. What you use generative AI for? Right? The same URL, Slido URL. Please answer. What do you use generative AI for? It's a good way for me to see how many of you are listening. So I say I use generative AI for asking general knowledge questions. Yeah, you can actually answer more than one. To have a conversation with it, to understand a new concept, dig deep into a topic, to get summaries of articles, to solve coding problems, to check my knowledge. Of course, this is not a exhaustive list, but it will be nice to find out how you use, what you use generative AI mostly for. Right, so 25 of the 130 of you have answered. We have a few more. Right, so 45 of you have answered. The two most common things seems to be to understand a new concept and to solve coding problems. Yeah, I suppose because this audience is fairly from a coding background, those two seem to be the most biased. But also to dig deep into a topic, that's good. Asking general knowledge questions, to have a conversation with it. Summaries of articles, yeah, that's another popular kind of use case. Right. Also a reminder that you can always put your questions in the Q&A forum. There's a tab called Q&A. Currently, it has some old questions, but of course, if one of those questions is important to you, you can upvote it. Otherwise, put your own question so that in general, when you have these online things, very hard to get people to unmute and ask questions. So this is one way you can ask questions. Let me see, 60 of you roughly have answered. I will share the output of these things at the end. Right. So how can I best use it? So there is some when I say best use it, it is like can be anything, right? So today we don't have to do only ChatGPT, but we have many options. And for those of you who are interested to see how well these things do with Sinhala and Tamil, I encourage you to try for Omni 4.0 is pretty good, but I think something that I found that does really well is Claude 3.5 Sonnet, right? Which is the one that is online right now. It does some pretty amazing thing with Sinhala and Tamil also. Right. So, how can I best use generative AI? Yeah, these are some statistics. I'm just this is preaching to the fire, right? So I had this slide because there were some people who still hadn't started using it. Right. So so playing around, I think a lot of people are interested in asking kind of philosophical questions like who are you, or the last one here, what is your goal, are you unbiased, and stuff like that. You can try to ask who is and give some name, right? In the past, at the beginning, you could actually put your name there. Now, and it would give a very creative kind of answer. But now, say, is it someone I know? I don't know that person. Is someone I should know or something. Do all mammals have umbilical cords? I mean, when I was in the shower, I just wonder. Right? And the answer to this was a bit unexpected. We think that we know these things are these are simple, but name 5 reptiles endemic to South Asia. What is the least populous country? So these are like general knowledge questions, right? And these are things. This is like the minimal use case, and that's why that option in the poll to put random questions is one use case, but not such a hugely important use case anymore. But here is some examples, right, to show how the output can be very different. What is a gharial? So it gives an answer like this. Write a blog post about a gharial. Quite a different output, right? So how you can control the output by asking the question in a particular way. And then these are some examples just for fun. And I think you can you can just try some of these. I will be sharing my slide deck so you can try. You are my dictionary. When I give a word, you will give the dictionary definition, a synonym list, an antonym list, and 3 example sentences using that word. So brilliant way to learn how to use a particular word for its in a context. And after this, you can just say, okay, I don't know, let's say paradigm, and it will say what are the dictionary definition, probably not so useful, synonyms, antonyms, and 3 examples. The second is another example. I will not talk too much about it, but excellent for learning a new language, whatever that language is. Obviously, it may not do very well for rare languages. As a writing tool, create an article outline for this topic. Make a concise yet ensure no. So here, rather than just saying what is, I don't know, nanotechnology or something, create an article outline for nanotechnology. Then you work on it, work with it. So back and forth with the LLM is how you would have this human machine joint best output, right? So just saying what is nanotechnology, copying and pasting is suboptimal. Summarize an article. So this is obviously a very useful thing. In the past, you had to actually copy and paste the article in the text box, but now most of them allow you to attach, right, an article and then say to summarize. And of course, there are other tools like Coral AI or Chat PDF. There you can upload a PDF and then chat with the PDF, right? It may by default give a summary, but then you can. So it's a great way of for reading a paper that is very hard to understand. Like you put the paper in, you ask, it will summarize. Then you start asking questions of it, specific questions, and then dig deeper. So just three metaphors for the benefit. Well, this is not a this is a bit kind of lame, but three metaphors for I don't know, let's say climate change or something like that, right? Metaphors are a great way to put across ideas that are difficult to explain, and so you can ask. That's the kind of thing you can see that the Gen AI LLM can do for you. Here's another thing, role play. I want you to act as a stand-up comedian. I will provide you with some topics related to current events, and you will use your wit, creativity, and observation skills, create a routine based on those topics. You should also be sure to incorporate personal anecdotes or experiences into the routine in order to make it relatable and engaging for the audience. So, see that the longer, the more specific the prompt is, the better your output is. So my first request is I want a humorous take on politics. Right? So if I just, without this top part, just say give a humorous take on politics, it's not going to be so good. My next request is how to become a politician in Sri Lanka. If you just ask this question versus if you put this prompt and then ask the question, you can for yourself see what the difference is. Right? First give this one standalone question. Then give this kind of context. You can, of course, copy and paste, or you can write something better than this, right? And see for yourself. So that's why we say prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering is an art. So here's another one I want to, I think there may be hopefully a lot of you budding music composers, but you don't know how to add music to lyrics. You're good at giving the lyrics. So I will provide the lyrics to the song, and you will create music for it, and various things like this. I mean, I'm sure there are some people among you who are good in this, uh, and the thing is that we can use this technology for things that we are so far not using it for. Right? You mean the chords for this song, right? You insert the lyrics and give the chords. Or writing the lyrics, write a pop song about leaving home for joining college or something like that. And then another way is to insert lyrics and saying, I have this, I managed to only do 2 verses. Can you do, 2 more verses or something like that? Of course, if you are doing poetry, you can do the same, right? Employment. I think many of you may be already doing this. If you are in your internship year or something like that, or if you're passing out soon, I want you to act as an interviewer. I will be the candidate, and you will ask me interview questions for the position of, I don't know, full stack developer, or I don't know, data science, data engineer, or whatever, right? I want you to only reply as the interviewer. Do not write all the conversation at once. Sometimes you have to say this because some LLMs are very verbose. So to control that, you say, just give the question. Then the second use case is I am providing you with my written CV, generate a summary that elaborates my unique selling points and sets me apart from other candidates. So these models have been trained with so much of data, including CVs, that they'll be able to kind of distinguish some of these things. Or I can say, I am providing my resume. Please review it and suggest any improvements or edit. This you can do also for your arguments, for your articles, for your essays, like that. I highly encourage you to do the first one. First draft you do, and then get Gen AI to improve it. If you get Gen AI to do the thing, then not as good. I mean, some of you may not believe it, but it's not as good, and it's not as fresh as original, because the LLMs have been trained on text, and the dominant kind of narrative is what will take over. Help me to write a cold email for the position of blah blah to the editor-in-chief. Okay, so cold email means unsolicited. So some of you may have to do that for even for your internships, right? Nobody's advertising, so you send your CV. Okay? Get me if you can, kind of. So you don't really say that, but you send it. Cold email is unsolicited, so nobody asked you for your CV. How do you kind of write it in a respectful and yet intentional way? So I mean, there may be so many use cases that you can think of that are even in this area. Cooking, of course, I will not go into this, but I mean, I think you have lots and lots of options. I will just skip this, but the slide deck will be online somewhere. Travel, again, I will not go into this. There are lots of possibilities. Education, okay, so we use this, right? So why not you use it? Provide 10 multiple choice questions about mathematics for an 8th grader. Right? You can say, okay, here's my I don't know, curriculum document. Can you ask me 10 MCQs on lesson 1 or topic area 1? So it's an excellent way for you to try out. And actually, if you make this prompt in a way, you can say, and then when I answer, give me the mark it, or give me a response whether it's correct or wrong. Maybe why it's wrong. Right? You can copy a video transcript, and now I think YouTube allows you to, for English, right, to have a transcription. So you cut and paste that here and say generate 7 questions based on this transcript. Now this is more relevant for people in the humanities, I guess. I have 3 days free in a week and 2 months. Make a crash study plan for diving into English grammar or something. I mean, whatever, some other topic, right? Explain the Pythagorean theorem to a primary school kid, right? So this is a really cool trick, right? So primary school kid is a little too low, right? Because it will give so much of for us, I mean, for you, right? But let's say there's a hard thing to identify, right? You want to identify what is this concept of overfitting, right? Overfitting in machine learning, right? So you say, can you explain the idea of overfitting in machine learning context to a high school, right? So that it will kind of not use big formulas and things like that, but explain it in a really easy way to understand. We have just begun learning about integers in class. I mean, instead of integers, it can be, I don't know, encapsulation or something. What are some lessons that are likely going to be covered in the that I can learn early, right? So this is an excellent way to prepare for the next week, right? I know that's not the way kids work, you guys work, but if you want, this is available. Right? Give me 10 tips on how to maintain class. Okay, this is actually for teachers. right? So we are actually asking for this, how to maintain attention in class. This is kind of a fun prompt. What are the 20 most out-of-the-box ChatGPT prompts that will show the power of AI? You can try something like this. So, meta. Right. So here's my kind of, this is not like no Gen AI or no LLM has been trained to do this kind of thing, but I'm saying this is a way to think about how to prompt, right? Act as somebody, right? Here I'm saying as historian, movie critic, Einstein, English teacher, legal expert, right? To perform something, right? Article to, you don't say actually to perform, write article. Say to write an article, to blog post, tweet, to summarize, to rewrite, code, to visualize. For whom? For a beginner, college student, 5-year-old, grandmother, right? In some output format in HTML. If you don't say anything, it will be just text, but you can output in HTML, Python, Markdown, table form, graph, Excel, JSON. Actually, now with the multimodal models, you can even say draw a picture to show that. Right? And of course, all this is known as what is called zero-shot prompting. Have I missed? Okay, I'll skip that for the moment. Yeah, I'll skip it also. And I'm skipping that. Okay, right. Let me quickly have a look at whether there are any questions. No questions. Okay, right. Right, no questions. So, if you don't want to hear me keep talking, then please ask questions so that we will talk about what you want me to talk rather than me just jabbering. Let's see. Right. So how do we customize this? So I think the easiest way is to use this site called po.com, right? And this their idea was copied by OpenAI, though they won't admit it, when they kind of launched GPTs. But Po had it before that. As you can see, Po has like search engines here. Sorry, not search engines, bots. So a single interface. Assistant is their bot, but GPT-4, Gemini, Claude, whatever you can think of, Quen, and the whole lot. Right? So these first lot are the official bots, right? You can say see all, and you will see at least 25 of them. The bots for you, these are all community created ones, and the way you create it is by clicking this and you create a bot. What it allows you to do is to put a prompt template. So what I just discussed with you in the previous section is something like a prompt template. Act as so and so, something like that. So, for instance, now if you go and ask what are the degree programs offered by IIT, it probably will say the degree programs that are offered by the Indian Institute of Technology. Or if you say what are the programs offered by UCSC, it will probably say what are the programs offered by the University of California, Santa Cruz. So by using Po and creating your own bot, you can have a prompt template that says IIT stands for the Informatics Institute of Technology in Sri Lanka, blah, 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 and have some introduction. That's the prompt template. Then beyond prompt template, you can do some few shot prompting. So you can give some examples. And then in Po, you can also upload some PDFs, right? So for instance, let's say the bylaws or the program descriptors that are in PDF files, or the dress code at IIT or whatever, right? You can put those in PDFs, and so you can then customize and create your own chatbot. I highly encourage you to go and see some of the things other people have created using. But beyond that, what happens beyond that? Uh, uh, so this is the thing what we said earlier. LLMs can only generate the next token. Conversations is only an illusion. Supervised fine tuning and instruction data is what actually gets us there. Context is everything in good LLM generation, right? So that is where the birth of prompt engineering became. So if you are a software engineer in 2022, most probably the best thing to do would have been to become a prompt engineer, right? Structuring this prompt requires these templates, and these are made available through LLM app frameworks like LangChain, Llama Index, AutoGPT, Agent. So Llama Index by Meta, AutoGen by Microsoft. LangChain is open source thing, and so we are going to look very briefly at LangChain. LangChain provides access to language models and open source ones, which are like hosted at Hugging Face, or proprietary ones like ChatGPT, Gemini, those. It provides a way to incorporate prompt templates, to chain multiple components within a LangChain. It provides a way to access index data from external vector data stores, provides a way to remember interactions, and it provides a way to create agents for accessing other tools for implementing logic, right? I think some of these are going to be covered in the next few sessions, so I'm not going to really talk too much about it. And if there are any people who are like worried about coding, then there are no code development environments like Flowwise. But I'm going to, since most of you are developers, I'm going to skip this part. Some frameworks, again, I'm going to skip these parts because you will be mostly using things like LangChain or LangGraph. So the agents part is now implemented in LangGraph, which integrates with LangChain. How are we doing for time? Right, so tired of this. So let me, yeah. Since I'll be sharing these slides, I think you don't have to. I'm not going to like really go detail. These are self-explanatory examples. Uh, Basically, how you would access a proprietary LLM such as OpenAI and an open source one from Hugging Face, right? So not much difference. And then second thing is how you would create prompt templates, right? Including ones that have some examples. I think it's a bit late in the night for you to actually probably focus on these things, but this is for you to take home. So you take home, you try these things or go through. I think I may have a link to a tutorial on this somewhere at the end. Then how do you chain things? So here I'm chaining using LLM chain. I'm chaining a language model and a prompt template. And this shows how you chain one LLM with another. Right? So you can have two LLMs. So one is your real LLM, and the other one is a code LLM. Right? So how do you chain them together, and how do you direct questions based on what the problem is? How do you chain with external data? So this is a chaining with the YouTube load. Lots of functionality in LangChain. How do you access external data? So one of the things that happens is that if there is a document or internal data that is not indexed or used to create the large language models, then you can make it available through a vector data store such as FICE, which is the Facebook open source vector store. But there are other things like Chroma. Pinecone is not free, but it has a free tier, I think. And so our documents, we can send our documents, which it will take and chunk and form embeddings of. The reason for that is then when you give a prompt, when the user gives a prompt, it will embed that user input in the same way as it embedded your document, so that it will match your vector embedding with the stored embeddings, and it will get, let's say, the top 3, top 5 hits. It will put it in the context window. So actually, though you are asking one question, let's say you are asking, I don't know, what is the longest river in the world or something, ChatGPT or whatever, puts, before it sends it to the LLM, it puts its own prompt template, which says, be a very, I don't know, convivial chat agent that helps the user, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of template. Then it will have maybe the chunks that you take out from your vector store. Right? This thing is called retrieval augmented generation. So it will put that, and then it will put your question, and then send that whole context window to the LLM. And hopefully there'll be enough space in the context window for the LLM to respond to that query. Chat interactions are stateless, so we need to persist them, right? So here, if you don't have, by default, you will not have any memory, because we are so used to using generative AI tools now, like ChatGPT and Gemini. We expect it to know, but they are stateless. So this left-hand side is where the user says Alice has a parrot, Bob has 2 cats, and then he asks how many pets do Alice and Bob have, and it says impossible to answer. But if you have memory, Alice has a parrot, Bob has 2 cats, and you ask how many pets do Alice and Bob have. From what you have told me, Alice has 1 pet and a parrot, Bob has 2 pets, 2 cats, right? So to enable this, you need to have memory. And 3 of the possibilities for LangChain keep everything. Obviously, keep everything will exhaust your context window fairly fast. So you say keep the last k, last 3, last 5, something like that. Or better still, you keep a summary. That means it won't keep all the interactions. It will keep a summary of the interactions. Yes, example. This is an essential part of a conversation agent for interpreting follow-up questions. Right. Finally, agents. Agents are things that allow chatbots to make decisions like this and to interact with external tools like answer math problems, execute arbitrary code, look up databases. So here's an example. It's looking up Wikipedia as well as math tool. To answer this question, when was Barack Obama born and how old is he? So this is showing the interaction in a verbose mode. Goes to Wikipedia, finds out that he's born in 1961, and then it tries to compute. This was in 2022. Then 2022 minus 1961, and comes up with the age of 61. This is LangChain in a slide, so it has all these possibilities, and creating a final chain. Unfortunately, this doesn't have RAG in it, like vector stores, but I just showed you that it can also do vector stores. Right. So what are the use cases of LLMs? Prompt templates, simplest customization. You can do this with po.com, so you don't really need to do LangChain for this. Retrieval augmented generation. Again, you can use Po to update some documents, but of course with LangChain, you have much more flexibility. Using supervised fine tuning, right? For domain specific instruct models. So let's say you are going to do something for a particular client who's in a narrow domain, you can fine tune. Now, fine tuning can be very expensive, right? Depending on how big the fine tuning data set is. Towards training from scratch, of course, this is out of reach of most people, including the largest of companies in Sri Lanka, right? So we generally will have to uh, 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 so this is a challenge for, like, if you want to create a pure single or pure Tamil data set, LLM. The use cases for that are not very clear, but if in case you want to do that. And then full agent functionality to access multiple knowledge base. And today we use this. There are several other frameworks like LangChain, and one of the things that integrates well with LangChain is called LangGraph. Right, so playing around with LangChain. Most of this will require GPU, so the minimum is Google Colab with the T4 GPU, which is a free one you get. You can try others like Kaggle kernels, or cheaper paid platforms like Jarvis Labs, Vast AI, or Grok. Grok is really fast and currently has a very generous free version. If you want to do this in your own machine, Olama or LM Studio. Having said that, if you're doing any work with LangChain, you would have to have a GPU on your machine, right? So that's a bit of a challenge. Better LLMs will give better results, but require larger GPU RAM. State of the art OpenAI Anthropic models are obviously better, but expensive to run. These are small models you can play around with. Quantized models such as Llama 2 and now Llama 3, all of them have this final thing, GGM. So these models will have like a basic name and a version and a parameter count. Here it says 7 billion parameters. And then generally it will say whether it's instruct or chat fine-tuned. And then the final thing here is whether it is quantized. Quantized means instead of using 32-bit floats for all the parameters, you can imagine 7 billion parameters at 32-bit float. But you can make it 16-bit, 8-bit, even 4-bit, right? So the GGML is a way that shows that this is quantized. Other models such as Mistral, Platypus, now of course, ideally Llama 3.1 small or whatever the mini model to try. Right. Okay. So looks like we've lost about 20% of our audience. What are the implications? One of the big ones is hallucination. Right. This is why. Yeah. So we are doing some research on kind of a public good project on a legal large language model. So our initial thing was, let's create a legal large language model for Sri Lankan law and make it available to the public. Right now, this is very dangerous because of hallucination. So now we've changed our target audience to lawyers and law students. Right. So that is because they should be able to identify hallucination. So similarly, if we are doing a domain-specific chatbot, we need to think about this and worry about this, right? So currently, people are using these things without sometimes by being able to identify hallucination. So these are some examples. I will not go into those. What causes hallucination? I won't go into that, but closed world assumption is one of the main reasons. The problem of not knowing what is not knowing, not known. Like there is no way for a LLM to know what it doesn't know, right? Actually, there are many humans also who are in the same boat, right? So I hope you are not the 104 of you are not in that class, right? That you know what you don't know and are able to admit it. Not knowing when to be creative is another thing, right? So when you are with your friends, in the canteen or I don't know on the road, you will probably often uh, do the equivalent of hallucination, because hallucination is just one step next to creativity, right? So you will say some kind of hallucinatory thing, but your friends know the context, and so they will laugh at it, or they will, re-hallucinate at you, right? But LLM is not aware of when to hallucinate, when not to, and so that's another reason, right? So the implication of Gen AI, understand that ChatGPT and all these LLMs are primarily language models. They don't really understand language the way we do, right? So when it says Barack Obama is 62 or whatever, it doesn't really know Barack Obama, right? It knows from the text it has. You and I kind of know that there is a real life person called Barack Obama who has all these positive and negative things, and unless it's written, the LLM won't, right? So they don't understand language the way we understand. So this brings a big question: what is the relationship between language and intelligence? A philosophical question, which I have a separate talk on. So a famous philosopher called John Searle, actually an AI person, uh, gave this puzzle to understand this dilemma, right? So he said he's John Searle, he's inside a room with some instruction booklets, but he doesn't know any Chinese. But these Chinese people come and ask him questions, and he goes through this instruction set and responds in Chinese, right? So for the Chinese person, Searle understands Chinese, but Searle himself says he doesn't understand Chinese. So this is the same argument now. Does ChatGPT understand English or Sinhala, Tamil or whatever it answers confidently in? And then more importantly, steer away from attributing personhood, agency, sentience, consciousness, etc. to these LLMs. Now, some people will argue with this because they will say, well, if you believe in emergent properties, maybe sentience and consciousness are emergent property. They will suddenly emerge. Right? And I think many people, such as Ray Kurzweil, a well-known person, believes that. But there are many people, even AI practitioners, who actually say that these systems should not use the personal pronoun. So ChatGPT shouldn't say, "I can help you with that," right? Because especially for kids, right? They will actually grow up believing that this is a person. And it becomes even more kind of compelling when the chatbot is actually a humanoid robot, right? So the chat GPT or any program, you can say, forget it and click the kill window bar and go away. But if you have a robot like Sophie or any of these new humanoid robots, it who's looking at you, right? It almost becomes hard to actually punch it, right, or to kick it or anything like that, right? So this there's a big debate about how we kind of attribute personhood to these things. However, on the other side of the coin, we have Gen AI poses an important challenge to the way we think. Right? So we need to rethink the way we do our work. So already we are kind of augmented terms of like we will not go to looking for a place by just by the address, right? We will want a Google pin or something, right? So we are already technology augmented, right? And soon we will be AI augmented. So there'll be less workers for the current job already, right? Probably, be very lazy as coders to generate comments, to comment our code, right? So that's one thing you can use Gen AI if you prompt it properly to comment your code. Right? So that means you need less workers for the current jobs. I know there was a lot of hype about Devin, right, being a software engineer. We are not still there, but what four software engineers could do in 2022, probably two can do in 2024, right? And it's not only for software engineers, for content creators, for fiction writers, for virtually all fields. So it's not that AI would replace you, but another person using AI well uh, could replace you. So that's why we need to be on top of this technology. So we have to be worried about how to make AI more transparent. Example, explain its decisions and recommendations, right? You should be able to ask why are you making these recommendations. You should demand guardrails are in place, right? So that people don't get caught to hallucinations. We should retain responsibility and agency. So a doctor can't say, okay, Gen AI said this, so I am prescribing this medicine, right? The doctor has to take responsibility. Resisting diminishing of biological human life and ensuring benefits to the vulnerable. So all the benefits that we can get from this, we should be careful that we don't just keep it all to ourselves. We try to see, okay, how can I empower a blind person to make the maximum of this, a deaf person, a disabled person. Right? How can I make it more equitable? So let's move towards the two sides here, a future where we have these two sides, Wall-E or Big Hero 6 rather than Terminator or one of the negative kind of things. Right, I'm going to skip this one, but if there is one piece of legislation that any AI person should know, it is this one, right? And of course, today you don't have to, this is a very complicated piece of legislation. You just take this document, put it in chat PDF or any Gen AI and ask it to summarize and then drill down. What does it mean by this? What does it mean by that? And so on. Like essential reading. Right. I think I'm kind of done. So for students, what should you really study? Don't worry, okay, software engineer, I'm going to be replaced. No. If you have a passion for something, you go after that and you will find a way to leverage AI to do that thing. What jobs would be there? Impossible to predict. Nobody knew that there'll be a job called drone operator, right? 5 years ago. So similarly, nobody will be able to explain this. So that's why you've got to be agile, right? You've got to be agile. Don't be stuck to, okay, the engineer, lawyer, doctor kind of jobs. Be agile. Right? Who knows? You may be a kind of you may be a better person at using AI to solve medical problems than your doctor friend. So if you know how to use this, then you can actually go to any area. How can we survive? No, try. Right? Regain your curiosity. We have killed it over 14 years of school, 13 years of 12 years of 10 years of school, right? But how do you regain that? Learn how to learn and be agile. So for students, the main implication is focus on the higher order thinking skills. These top three: create, evaluate, analyze, and not on these lower order ones. Remember, understand, apply. Right? If you don't know this, search for Bloom's taxonomy and get this and find out about the 21st century skills. So this is what will keep you agile, relevant, moving forward in this age of AI. And finally, again, remember to be humble. Uh, thank you. Final uh, poll, we have only 98 people, but I'm going to enable the final poll, right? How I hope to change the way I use generative AI. You can put more than one option here, right? Same Slido page. You can say either you are going to use it regularly during the week, this week. You say you are going to craft better prompts. You can say you are going to give more context to your questions. You can say you're going to dig deeper with follow-up questions. You can say beware that you're going to beware that generative AI response may be incorrect. You can say you're going to try out some of the example prompt templates, and then finally think first and then use generative AI. Right? So these are some of the decisions, right? I hope I can encourage you to take as a result of this evening's learnings, because as they say, learning is not learning unless it changes some aspect, some part of our behavior. So what is that part of the behavior that we are going to change as a result of what we've heard? So I hope that there will be some take home. I will share this presentation with the organizers, and so hopefully they will put it up somewhere so that you can try some of the example prompts and templates. So only 26 out of the 94 of you have responded. Um Out of those people, let's see. Okay, maybe I can show this live. Let me try to show this live just to encourage you to take part in the poll. Some reason. Okay, right. Let me show the poll live. Not this. I will share my screen. So you can see the number should be there. The number of people who have polled so far. Yeah, only 34 out of the 95 of you. So the popular ones, think first and then use generative AI. I'm very happy with that. Very important, right, to keep up your humanness and your creativity. Give more context to your questions. Very key thing, very important. If there's one lesson from this evening, that is the lesson. Craft better prompts. Yes, I hope you do that. Dig deeper with follow-up questions. So related to giving context, when you give follow-up questions, the system will know the context better. Try out more than one or two generative AI tools, right? So some of the new other tools. Poor.com is a good way to go and start that. Beware that Gen AI may be incorrect, very good, and try some of the examples. Okay, thank you. You've been very patient, 95 of you. We lost about 35, that's okay. It was a long session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful presentation. Now we open the floor for your questions. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we will address as many of the questions possible. Also, you can switch on your mics and directly ask your questions. Seems like sir have already covered all the questions. Uh, so before we conclude, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Ruvan Weerasinghe for sharing his expertise with us. So I would like to invite Dr. Ruvan Weerasinghe to accept our virtual token of appreciation for your immense participation to make this session a massive success. Now you can join Sri Lanka AI Challenge by scanning the QR code in the screen. We will share this registration link in the delegate WhatsApp group as well. Now we would like to capture this moment with a group photo. We have shared the background image in the chat and we appreciate if you could set it as your Zoom background for the group photo. We appreciate if you can turn on your cameras for the group.
They may be
All
in
right,
their
thank you.
pajamas.
Yes, thank you all. So we are gradually come to the end of the today's session. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening. We hope you found this session both informative and inspiring. Stay tuned for further sessions and updates from our community. Have a wonderful night and we look forward to seeing you at our next session.